Hello everybody and welcome back to the weekly horoscope for the 16th of February to the 22nd of February. Please watch for your rising sign because it's going to be more accurate, but you can watch your sun and moon too. And in this video, I'm using a whole sign system. So if you're used to Placidus, just be mindful that it might be a little bit different to what you're used to, but this is the traditional house system on astrology. I'm also going to talk about the main themes and then we'll move on to the rising signs. So one of the main themes this week is that February the 17th, we have a new moon, a solar eclipse in Aquarius. And I do also have a video on this explaining the aspects of the eclipse, what it's going to entail, and also what it means for your rising sign as well in more detail, which will be in the bio or on the screen, whichever I decide to do first. So this eclipse is taking place at 28 degrees, which is the third decan of Aquarius associated with the Seven of Swords. And that is a very deceptive card. It deals with root survival and rooting out the truth. Because Aquarius is both ruled by Saturn and Uranus, there is a sense that there is going to be an innovation of a traditional structure here in your life. So something from your past or something that you don't yet know is kind of giving you a lesson, like a harsh lesson. And Uranus is adding a bit of shock there. And I'm just going to change the frame slightly just to show you on my trusty whiteboard here that the reason there's extra volatility with this eclipse is that the sun here is actually going to square Uranus in Taurus. So we have a square. This is a point of tension, like building up a muscle in the gym. It's not the worst thing in the world, but because you have Uranus as a co-ruler to Aquarius, and then you also have this Uranus in Taurus, which is debilitated. Actually, both of these are not great together. They don't like to be in these positions. It's just extra sort of expect the unexpected. Again, that rooting out of deception. You also have Mercury here and Venus, and they will be trining Jupiter in Cancer, which is actually a nice aspect. But as I've said before, these can be very delusional, right? So again, it's sort of like you need to make sure that you're seeing the truth with this eclipse and that those things come to light, especially if you're somebody that is an Aquarius rising or a Leo rising, even a Cancer rising. There's a lot of potential for things to really come to the surface. And it's like, oh, what's going on there, right? So those aspects are adding to the volatility. Then the next day, February 18th, this sun actually moves into Pisces. So we have Pisces here, which is really lovely. So happy birthday if you're watching as a Pisces sun. And then February 20th, we have this new conjunction. So we have Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries, and this is going to be at 0 degrees. So 0 degrees is super potent. We haven't had this since like 7000 BC, right? This is like the birth of a civilization, cockroaches from the ashes, and putting all of our collective dreams into reality. So in that regard, there's going to be a start of a new era. We're going to notice our limits and then try to push past them. So there's quite a lot of energy here that is very powerful. It's quite frustrated, but it's also very motivated too. So just thought I'd explain that visually, like I was a school teacher. I also just want to mention there's quite a few aspects this week, and I don't want to mention all of them because sometimes they're not super relevant, and also I'll be here for ages talking about them. So I'm going to kind of selectively pick what I think is important for you to hear based on your rising sign. So please forgive me if I'm talking about one aspect for one sign but not for the other. It's because I can link them and say this is going to be especially important for you because some aspects happen and they go without notice. You know, nothing really happens. It's just something in the background. So if you are an Aries rising, then February the 16th, Mercury in Pisces in the 12th house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 4th house. This is very optimistic. It's where you have a really nice opportunity for manifestation, especially when it comes to having stability in your life or looking forward to the home and the family, and the future generally looks really bright. February 17th, the new moon, the solar eclipse in Aquarius, is taking place in your 11th house. Again, I'm going to keep this relatively short because I already have a video talking about this, but generally it's a challenging of the status quo when it comes to your friendships, but I see it more as a long-term goal thing. So you're looking at the strategy of your long-term goals, especially now that Saturn is in Aries in the first house. So embracing your authentic self, your new identity, and also maybe ruffling a few feathers here because it is at that 28 degree point, which is very deceptive. It could be that you find out some information about a friend or someone you're working with in a group, and it's like, oh, okay, I think I need to change things up. But also you have to remember that the 11th house is ruled by Aquarius. Therefore, we're taking that old structure and innovating it. So this feels like you are taking parts of a certain element, a certain person or event, whatever resonates with you, and trying to innovate it. February the 18th, the sun enters Pisces in the 12th house, which is fantastic for manifestation. Really marks the end of winter too. And so this is more imaginative and empathetic in that 12th house of manifestation and sort of dreaminess. So it's very good for envisioning a better world, especially after you've just had that eclipse in the 11th house. February 20th, we have Saturn in Aries in the first house, and that is conjunct Neptune in Aries in the first house. Woo-wee! I have been saying for so long how excited I am about this aspect because it's so rare. Like, I'm talking not since like 7000 BC type of energy, it is rare, right? I'm no historian, so please forgive me if I'm getting that one wrong, but pretty sure it's that at 0 degrees in Aries at this particular point, definitely very rare. So start of a new era for you in that house of identity and self. This is truly a new year, right? We always talk about, January the 1st being the mark of a new person and a new year, but this feels more like the new start. And it's also bringing all your dreams into reality. So again, working towards a dream life. You see your limit here and you push past it. You're like David Goggins. It's like, who's going to carry the boats, especially now Saturn's in your first house, giving you confidence and making you physically and mentally strong. So use this energy if you're ever going to use it. If you are a Taurus, it's a particularly important week for you. So February the 16th, we have Mercury in Pisces in the 11th house, trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 3rd house. This is a very optimistic type of energy for, good news and having a hope inside of you, especially with groups of people or friends, and then communication. So generally it's like I'm having a really good conversation where I feel enlightened. Those times when we speak to friends and we come away and we're like, oh God, that really made me feel like I can conquer the world, I'm supported emotionally, it just generally feels like, the sun is out. February 17th is the big one for you, Taurus, because we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius, and that's in your 10th house. So as a fixed sign, I get really funny now because someone said that I say fix like thick. It's not an accent. Fixed, as in a fixed sign. It's going to affect you in your 10th house. So the bigger element here for you, Taurus, is, as I've mentioned, we have got the sun, and that is squaring Uranus and Taurus, which is in your first house. So that's adding extra volatility for you with this 10th house of career and public persona. So you need to use this energy to try to challenge the status quo a little bit. It's quite deceptive, so you could find something out about a coworker or a boss that you didn't know, but it could also be that you're moving towards a more authentic version of yourself, because we have also got Pluto in Aquarius for the next 17 years, which is pushing you towards how you want to really define your public image. And again, I don't say that as in like, oh, but I'm just a person and I'm not a celebrity. What do you mean by public image? Every time we go out to the supermarket or whatever, we have a public image, right? What our career is, our status, what car we drive, everything is about how we're coming across. And this Aquarius eclipse is really defining that, especially because we have this old structure that is being innovated. So taking parts of what you like to do with your work and how you can add new qualifications to it would be a good thing. But I wouldn't necessarily, sorry, my voice is going, I've got a cold. I wouldn't necessarily start anything tangible because of the eclipse energy. I'd just kind of make the decision in your mind or put pen to paper. February 18th, the sun enters Pisces in your 11th house, which brings great harmony and imagination to groups of people, working and friendships as well. So this is really nice to be more empathetic and compassionate to the people in your life. February 20th, Saturn in Aries in the 12th house is actually conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 12th house, which is really good for manifestation. This is at the 0 degree point, which is very, very rare. And so you're really bringing all your dreams into reality. So all the manifestations, and let's link this to the eclipse of the 10th house, where we're talking about public persona, what we're known for, what we're talented at, what we really want to be defined for, and put that into reality. Because if someone else has got it, you can look at someone and say, they've got my dream life, then you can have it too. There is nothing stopping you. And because Saturn is trying to get you to understand about old grief and some of that trauma in the 12th house, and Neptune's trying to push you towards manifestation, you've got the great capacity here to see your limits and just frog leap over them and say, yeah, I can do anything. So I actually am very emboldened by this transit. And February the 22nd, Venus in Pisces in the 11th house is trining Jupiter and Cancer in the 3rd house. So very similar to the 6th in that it's very romantic, it's very optimistic, it's really good for friendships and communication or starting a project with a group of people. It generally feels like you're having a lot of fun with that as well. If you are a Gemini, then February 16th, Mercury in Pisces in the 10th house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 2nd house. There's a few things to note here as a Gemini because you're Mercury ruled, is that we are in the pre-shadow period for the Mercury retrograde that starts on the 25th, but again, we're in this pre-shadow period. So that will affect you. Mercury in Pisces is also debilitated. So even if it wasn't a retrograde, it's still going to affect you because it's a debilitation. So just be mindful that your communication is a little bit, it's not bad, it's just that you need to choose your words just a little bit more carefully, or if you're going to say something, just think, is this going to be received in the right way? So this particular aspect is really optimistic for career and finances, especially if you want a raise or you're looking towards a future at a type of job or something that you're talented at that makes money, but it's like, this is double my salary type of thing, because this is so optimistic. Jupiter really wants to expand that mindset. So this is a really good day to make plans for finances and career together. February the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in your 9th house. So this is really challenging the status quo in that 9th house, which is very sort of like, oh, I'm going to change my belief system up. You're really embracing your most authentic self with this eclipse. And I think you might also really ruffle some feathers with an opinion. Personally, this can be related to, is this really what I want to do when it comes to studying and traveling and what I want to do with my career? And the reason being is that the sun enters Pisces in the 10th house for you. So you have this more imaginative, almost manifestation energy with career. But then also February the 20th, Saturn in Aries in the 11th house is conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 11th house at 0 degrees, which is this new start with groups of people, but also that's the house of dreams and wish fulfillment. So the eclipse and the Saturn Neptune conjunction are working together to kind of show you that there is more out there for you. It's not rigid structures. There is more for you to do, there's more for you to see, and there's a broader horizon at play here. Remember that your sister sign is Sagittarius, which sees the bigger horizon. So even though you're detail orientated, you could do with tapping into that expansive energy. And again, putting your manifestations into reality here with the groups of people that you're working with mentoring and networking. And for a lot of you Geminis, because I know a lot of Gemini risings don't have a job right now, they're really unemployed, be thinking about starting your own business or taking the leap with some freelance work as well. February 22nd, Venus in Pisces in that 10th house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 2nd house. So that again is also really very optimistic, and it's very good for putting yourself out there. So again, if you wanted to network or you want to say, hey, I want to work on this project or I want to do this thing, or again, apply for a job, that energy is really positive. If you are a Cancer, then February 16th, Mercury in Pisces in the 9th house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 1st house. This is so optimistic. This literally feels like I want to book a holiday on this day. I want to like make plans with my friends. The future looks really bright, and also just feeling really hopeful for the opportunities that are in your life, no matter what that encompasses. So this is a good day to be positive. February the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in the 8th house. So if you're watching as a Cancer rising, or again, even if a Cancer sun or moon, you're always going to be slightly more affected by moons because you're ruled by the moon. So just be mindful that this eclipse is a little bit janky. It's actually taking place at 28 degrees, which is a very deceptive decan. And that's actually in the 8th house, quite difficult for you because it gives detective energy. So the 8th house is very hidden. So when the sun and moon are there, it's kind of like they can't fully express themselves properly. And when you also have the sun that's squaring Uranus, it adds extra sort of punch, sort of sudden shock and volatility in a house that's already dealing with sudden events and alchemizing and transformation. When we have a new moon, there's very little light in the sky. That means we have to work harder to find things out. So this could be a particularly deceptive energy for you, especially when it comes to legal matters, things that you share, so like a home or kind of bank account resources with a partner, intimacy and situationships, but also how you feel about yourself and, wanting to be your most authentic self. So just be prepared to be a little bit more emotional on this day, Cancer. February 18th, Sun enters Pisces in the 9th house, so a fellow water sign, very imaginative and empathetic. Again, it's really good for looking at your opportunities in life and being really excited about them. I personally think because this is the house of God, it's a fantastic manifestation energy. February the 20th, we have Saturn in Aries, and it's going to be conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 10th house. So remember that this is squaring a rising sign. So this is truly the start of a new era when it comes to your projects, your public persona, and your career. So you are really encouraged to see your boundaries, see the sort of limits, and jump over it. Push yourself to take on more responsibility, to put yourself out there more, to be seen, especially because you just had an eclipse in a house that doesn't like to be seen. So it's like, I want to be visible, okay? And again, we have not had this at 0 degree point since like BC ages, so it's very rare. It's going to really put a wind behind you. So imagine you're walking down a street and the wind is pushing you and you're like, oh my God, there's real momentum. Use that energy, because again, it's not only rare, but I think it could be really helpful for you after the eclipse to decide what you want to do in your life. And then February 22nd, Venus in Pisces in that 9th house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 1st house. So even though we're finished with Valentine's Day, it's actually quite romantic and, again, very optimistic for putting yourself out there. So the first start of the week is very much understanding and investigating, and then the second half is putting ourselves out there a little bit more. If you are a Leo, then this week is going to be very important for you, because February 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in your 7th house. So that's opposing your rising sign. So we already have the sun squaring Uranus, which is adding extra volatility. And of course, Uranus is the modern co-ruler to Aquarius. So in the 7th house, this can encompass quite a few things. So don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking it's got to be one thing or the other. And I also just saw 11:11 on the clock. I'm like, oh my God. So maybe that's a good sign. This can be relationships and situationships, clients, so people that you work with one-on-one, legal matters, but also making a very pivotal decision. I wouldn't do anything tangible when it comes to making decisions on the eclipse, because it's far too volatile. I would wait a couple of days. You can make the decision in your mind and say, in a couple of days, I'm really going to start putting moves down, but I wouldn't do it now, just because the results might not be that great. I also think this is about stepping into your most authentic self. With this eclipse, it's taking place at 28 degrees, which is a very deceptive energy. And so that can ruffle some feathers when it comes to communication. And, 7th house is known for being very diplomatic, but it can also be, hang on, this is not working right. You have to remember the 7th house is a house of open enemies. So it's a very openly deceptive house already in a decan that is very deceptive. So in my eyes, I'm like, some things might come to light. We have this new moon, which is very little light in the sky. So we have to work harder at trying to figure out what's going on. So just be prepared that there might be some information about relationships or people that you work with that comes to light. February 18th, the sun enters Pisces in the 8th house. The sun can't shine fully in the 8th house, so it's not going to be as strong as it would be if it was in like the 1st house or the 10th house, for example. But it is very imaginative and empathetic, and it's quite good for getting into something like astrology or writing or, reading fantasy books and kind of immersing yourself in that world. Basically, a bit of escapism might do you good, actually, at this point. And then February 20th, Saturn in Aries in the 9th house is conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 9th house. So this is at 0 degrees, which is a very rare degree point for this particular sign. So we haven't had this since like BC ages, so it's a really long time. We have had Saturn Neptune conjunctions, of course, but in Aries at 0 degrees at this point, very, very rare. So that really encourages you to test your boundaries and limits when it comes to what you think you can do, because the 9th house is so expansive, right? So imagine that this is a beach in front of us and we're looking at the horizon and we're saying anything is possible, right? We're not putting a boundary on ourselves. We're working collectively to put our dreams into reality, especially when it comes to wanting to travel, wanting more free time, not wanting to be on the grind so much. So I would be focusing on the opportunities and manifestations on this day. You can affirm, you can say, you can write things down, get your candles out. It's a good manifestation ritual, in my opinion. Especially because not only do we have the sun in Pisces, but you also have Venus and Mercury in Pisces too, adding that sort of delusional but, optimistic energy on top. If you are a Virgo, then February 16th, Mercury in Pisces in your 7th house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in your 11th house. So much like Gemini, there's a few things to note here. Because you're Mercury ruled, Mercury in Pisces is debilitated, which will affect you. We're also in the pre-shadow period for the retrograde that begins on the 25th. So I have said, Virgo, that you can still have communication. If you want to talk about your feelings, there's no problem with that. But just be mindful that it won't be as succinct and efficient as you might expect, especially because I think with Venus being in Pisces in the 7th house and then this Mercury debilitation pre-shadow period, it's better to act rather than say. You can do whatever you want. This is just my strategy. So this particular aspect with its trining Jupiter is very optimistic for relationships and really having wishes for the future, especially if you're trying to plan. And that's because you know, Saturn's not in your 7th house of committed relationships anymore. So you might feel like you could start moving forward with your relationships or start planning to meet somebody. February 17th, we have a solar eclipse, and that's in Aquarius in your 6th house. So this is going to add a few shakeups here because it's in a house that really likes to be responsible. And even though Aquarius is, you know, modern ruled by Uranus, it is still traditionally ruled by Saturn. So it does like the discipline that the 6th house brings and for which you rule. So this is about challenging the status quo, but not completely ripping up traditional structures. You might find, especially because of the Saturn in Aries conjunction later in the week, that you don't necessarily want to jump on the grenade for other people, or you might find there's a certain level of responsibility in your life that you don't feel quite happy with. You might feel very used, because this is taking place at the 28-degree point, which is very deceptive. So this feels like somebody's not telling you the truth about your situation. It could be a clash with a co-worker, but also it feels like, hang on, I'm doing all this stuff for everybody else and I'm not getting any thanks for it, or this is actually a little bit gaslighty, you're kind of manipulating me into this situation. So just be mindful, there could be some arguments or a little bit of an itchy feeling around responsibility on this day. February 18th, the Sun enters Pisces in the 7th house, bringing a lot of harmony to relationships, but also working with people one-on-one, very empathetic, very imaginative, so it's just good for romance. February the 20th, which is what I just referenced, Saturn in Aries, which is now in the 8th house, is going to be conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 8th house at 0 degrees, which is a very rare point. So we haven't had this for millennia, basically. So that's the start of a new era. And the reason why I mentioned it in conjunction with the eclipse, or in tandem with the eclipse, I should say, is because it's about testing the boundaries of your own mind and what you fear. So sometimes it can make you feel a little bit trapped. And so it's trying to put all your dreams into reality, but perhaps you're trying to make it too rigid. My fear is, because Virgos, you're so smart, you're more intelligent than all of us put together, you're going to try and rationalize what this energy is trying to bring, and sometimes you need to just be free flowing with it. You can see the limits and push past it, but there's a feeling that you're going to try to put order to this, and I don't think that's going to work. So I think this week for you, again, you can do whatever you want. Yes, this is just my advice. It makes no difference to me, really, is to let it kind of flow and hit you, because that 8th house is trying to find the truth and the authenticity in a situation to personally transmogrify you, but at the same time, that eclipse is like, I'm being manipulated. So it does feel like you have to put yourself first here, especially because Saturn Aries in the 8th house is like, hey, let's conquer our fears. Let's try and put ourselves first a little bit more. And then February 22nd, Venus in Pisces in that 7th house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 11th house. And again, that's very great for optimistic energy with friendships and relationships. You know, putting yourself out there, declaring your love in whatever way you want, and kind of just having a lot of fun with it too. If you are a Libra, then February the 16th, Mercury in Pisces in the 6th house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house. This is a really optimistic day to make plans. It's a really good day to spend time with a child if you have one, or to reach out to a child, to work on a project with a co-worker and have good kind of optimism there, but also testing the boundaries with your boss or any authority figure and saying, I'm taking on some responsibility here because I want to show you that I'm more reliable. February the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in the 5th house. So I've done a couple of readings for people with this 5th house, and it seems overwhelmingly it's about having an aggressive conversation about a situationship or about a relationship in which you want there to be more authenticity and more fun, but at the moment it feels dark and it feels confusing. So this can be about changing and ruffling some feathers up a little bit, because Aquarius is a lot about taking a traditional structure and innovating it. So we're not completely scrapping the old life. I personally think this makes a lot of sense when it comes to those creators out there, so the artists, the content creators, the performers, who want to really embrace that energy, or they want to try and monetize it, start a business, or usher in a period where they're more creative and they're getting very serious about that creativity, especially because this is quite a deceptive energy. So it's like, don't deceive yourself just because you think that I can't make money from this artistic venture or this creative thing or what have you. Because people have told me, because society have told me, that's just a deception. So it's about conquering that deception and seeing the light here. Although it might take a little bit more energy to see that light. February the 18th, Sun enters Pisces in the 6th house, which is really great imagination for working with co-workers, having new projects, changing up your environment a little bit, but also having this kind of envisionment of a better world where we're all looking after each other. It's generally, for you Libra, time to be very caring and understanding of those around you. February the 20th is quite big for you, Libra, because we have Saturn in Aries in the 7th house now, which is conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 7th house, and it's taking place at 0 degrees. So that is super rare. And it's true the start of a new era. I've said if you really want a beautiful relationship, if you don't already have a committed relationship, it's perfect for trying to find one or planning and manifesting on that day. But also this is about bringing your dreams into reality, the people that you want to work with one-on-one, and also knowing your limits and trying to push past them. Whatever it is to you, there's a really big decision that can be made on this day that changes the trajectory of the next couple of years for you. I know that sounds really dramatic, but this is super rare. We haven't had this since like 7000 BC at 0 degree point. So manifest and use this energy, whatever it pertains to be for you. If you are a Scorpio, then this is quite a big week for you because of the fixed sign energy. So February the 16th, we have Mercury in Pisces in the 5th house, trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 9th house. What a wonderful day to plan a trip or, you know, buy tickets for a comedy gig or a concert or a festival with friends and generally have a really optimistic outlook in the day. It's just beautiful. Like, this is a day to be positive. And you might also need it because February the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in your 4th house. So that is going to affect you. And the big thing to note about this is that the sun in Aquarius is actually squaring Uranus and Taurus, which is now in your 7th house of committed relationships. So there could be a mix match between home and family and your relationships, or making a very key pivotal decision. So this is at 28 degrees, which is very deceptive. It's 7 of Swords, actually. So there is some energy where you want to challenge a status quo, especially because 4th house is all about home and roots. And it's like, we want to change the status quo, but we don't want to dismantle like the whole structure. We just want to innovate it. So I think this could be related to responsibility, especially with family members or the people you have around you. Because February the 20th, we have Saturn in Aries, conjunct Neptune in Aries, and that's taking place in the 6th house at 0 degrees, which is very, very rare. So that's all about responsibility and duty. And that's about a new era where you're encouraged to see the boundaries. Like I said, when Saturn in Aries in the 6th house is asking you to be responsible because it will reward you for that, but it's also saying don't let people take the piss. I think that makes a lot of sense when we're putting it with the solar eclipse in the house where there's duty to family, there's duty to the home and to yourself, and it's quite rigid. You know, there's not much room to explore with these two houses. So with that conjunction, it's about putting your dreams into reality, and for you, a new era of wellness, of looking after yourself. And remember, and you can ask Libra risings about this, when you got Saturn in the 6th house, your health will become a priority. The wellness routine will become a priority. You become an LA girly that's like drinking the green juice because you have to, because you do not want to be running yourself ragged. So this is knowing your limits, and actually for you, not necessarily pushing past them, but defining what you really want to do with your motivation. So there's a lot of energy about duty and respect for family, home, and your own health this week. Sounds boring, I know, but it's going to be really important, so please don't gloss over it. February the 18th, just going back in time, the sun enters Pisces in the 5th house, which is super imaginative and empathetic. This is great for creativity. If you're a Scorpio that likes to, you know, create like art or even content creation, or there's something you want to research that's quite fun, this is really good for it. And then also February the 22nd, we have Venus in Pisces, which is in the 5th house, beautiful energy, trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 9th house. So quite similar to the 16th in that you're putting yourself out there, doing something fun, maybe even taking a short trip and, you know, just generally enjoying yourself, because those feelings and the things that you're going to be ruminating on about responsibility and about health and structure and, you know, just generally rigid routine can get really boring. And so you need to have a bit of fun to kind of balance it out a little bit. If you are a Sagittarius, then February the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in your 3rd house. So I actually had an eclipse in my 3rd house last year, and it was like the end of a friendship. The communication was very volatile. So the sun in Aquarius is going to be squaring Uranus in Taurus, and that could be some unexpected communication or some news that you didn't expect to receive. Aquarius is co-ruled by Uranus, so that's adding extra sort of volatility. And this could be challenging the status quo here, because that 3rd house deals with mental processing, so cognitive processing, projects, but also generally like speed, like communication and things that are happening very quickly. So there could be a potential for something to happen very quickly that ruffles a few feathers. This is taking place at 28 degrees, which is very deceptive. So again, it's quite manipulative, maybe even a bit gaslighty. And you know, the new moon is when there's very little light in the sky. So it's stuff where it's like, I really didn't expect that. So that's not to scare you. It's just to say that there might be some energy that you're not expecting. Even if you sort of received some grades from an essay that you did recently, you're like, hang on, I only got a pass? No, that doesn't seem right. There's just something that just generally feels a bit itchy for you with this eclipse. February the 18th, the sun enters Pisces in the 4th house, and that is going to be so imaginative and compassionate when it comes to the home and family. Actually quite nice to do a little bit of beautifying around the house, but also to tap into like the nostalgia of the home and family. So if there's someone that you've got like a sibling that you don't speak to much, it might be nice to just give them a call and be like, hey, you know, just reminiscing a little bit. February the 20th is quite important for you, Sag, because Saturn in Aries in the 5th house is conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 5th house at 0 degrees, which we haven't had since like 7000 BC. It's like pretty crazy, right? This is like Harry Met Sally to me. Like this is like, wow. If you're not in a relationship, Sag, and you want to be, this is like manifestation central, because this is putting all of our dreams into reality with that Neptune element. And then Saturn's like, I want to actually have something committed. So a romance that's committed, not just a fling. I can make this something really beautiful. So if you're in like a relationship, maybe you've only had a few dates or you've been dating for like 6 months or so and you want it to be really committed, this is amazing. This is beautiful. So use it. If you are a Capricorn rising like myself, then February the 16th, Mercury in Pisces in the 3rd house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 7th house. This is so optimistic and beautiful. And I keep saying we got to use Jupiter in Cancer in the 7th house as much as possible because it's going to be like gone in June. And I'm like, no, I really want it. So this is super hopeful. It's great for having communication with somebody one-on-one and it works out really well. It's actually a good day to go on a date, but also it's really nice if you want to start a project with a group of people and it's just like, wow, this is really going well. And you know, my future looks bright. It's optimistic. February 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in the 2nd house. So this is going to be challenging the status quo when it comes to how we make income, but also our sense of stability. The reason why I think this is quite potent, Cap, is because this is taking place at 28 degrees, which is a 7 of swords. It's quite deceptive, but it also deals with like fighting for like survival almost, like the root chakra. And the 2nd house deals with survival, stability, and that root chakra. So this is about embracing what we are doing right now that isn't going to be putting a lot of fear in our lives. And by that I mean, for example, for me as a Cap rising, I sometimes think that I never have enough money or I never have enough stability to feel like I'm going to be okay. Like I can see people's lives and think, oh my God, like I just fundamentally don't have that kind of luxury. It's not a lack mindset, it's just a weird feeling of, do I have this stability? And that's because I'm Saturn ruled, right? So when you're Cat rising, you're Saturn ruled. So you're already going to want that stability and that structure. So when something like Aquarius, which is also Saturn ruled, has an eclipse and it hits the 2nd house of stability, the feelings, excuse me, I've got a cold at the moment, so I've got like sort of acid coming up. The feeling of authenticity and how can I make money and the different streams of income start coming to the surface. So this is actually a really good time to have that aggressive new start with, can I make money doing this? Can I go freelance? You know, can I get more income if I change my job? How is that going to affect how I feel about myself and my stability? So I don't think it's about doing anything tangible, especially because of the volatile eclipse energy. But for you, it's more about how can I start making money from this, especially because the sun is squaring Uranus and Taurus. It's in our 5th house. That's all about fun and creativity. And can you make money from creative pursuits? Can you make money from things you're talented at? Or do you have to do a desk job? So I think there's a lot of consideration with this eclipse for you, Cap. February 18th, the sun enters Pisces in the 3rd house as well, which brings a lot of imagination to projects, especially writing. I'm a writer and academic, so I like to do a lot of writing and I like to use this kind of transit because I think it makes me more empathetic and I can envision a lot of fantasy. This is a really good time to read fantasy books or to write fantasy books and to get in tap with things like art, photography and film. So again, there seems to be a creative edge this week for you. February the 20th, Saturn in Aries in the 4th house is conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 4th house. And this is taking place at 0 degrees, which is very rare. We really haven't had this for millennia. And it's bringing our collective dreams into reality. So I've already mentioned that Saturn in Aries in the 4th house can bring delay and rigid structures to homes. So buying a home, you might find a delay, or you have to take on more responsibility with a family member. So this is about what do you want your family to be, knowing your limits and trying to push past them. So for example, if you think I can only afford this type of house, or I can only be in this type of area, again, use that energy of the eclipse of, no, I can do more. I know I can make more money so I can be in a better area. Why am I putting all these limits on myself? I don't want to do that. And I'm getting very passionate about it because I'm like, no, why do we have to stay in this like horrible structure? Let's push out of it. We can do it, you know? February the 22nd, Venus in Pisces in the 3rd house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 7th house. So again, very romantic day, great for communication. It's optimistic. It's really good for putting yourself out there, declaring your love and saying, oh my God. I've just been watching Heated Rivalry and I really love the scene where Ilya's speaking in Russian and he's like, I'm so in love with you and I don't know what to do about it. And I'm like, I resonate. So like speaking your truth and being like, you know what? I love you. And maybe doing it in a different language so they don't know what you're talking about. Who knows? If you are an Aquarius, it's a very big week for you, so you definitely want to watch this. So February 16th, we have Mercury in Pisces in your 2nd house, which is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 6th house. This is a really optimistic day to work with co-workers efficiently, but also to make plans for, expanding your income and changing up your identity. Because February the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in your sign in Aquarius, 1st house of self. So this is really going to impact you. It is the dawn of a new era for all of us. It's actually the same day that we usher in the year of the horse, which is super motivated. So we get rid of that horrible wood snake energy. And we use this energy to change the status quo. Because you have the luxury of being ruled by both Saturn and Uranus, you have this element of, okay, I can really change up things. I can take elements from a traditional system and a structure and innovate it. So you don't have to completely, scrap your old life and be like, I'm a new person completely. You can say, I want to innovate and just embrace more authenticity in my life. There are a few layers to this eclipse. So of course, the sun in Aquarius is actually squaring Uranus and Taurus. So that is going to affect you. It could also be that you want to change things up with your home environment, or you have a conversation with a family member that's like, look, I have to do my own thing here. But also it's taking place at 28 degrees, which is very deceptive energy. And so there could be I don't want to let people's manipulation or feelings or their own projections stop me from being who I want to be. I'm stepping into a powerful new identity, and I think it's going to be really helpful for me. Actually, February the 18th, Sun enters Pisces in the 2nd house, which adds a lot of imagination and harmony and manifestation energy to money and stability and, stepping into your power, because the 2nd house is a very confident house. But also February the 20th, Saturn in Aries is conjunct Neptune in Aries in the 3rd house at 0 degrees, which is a very rare point. So that's about putting all of those dreams into reality. So use this eclipse to really push on that identity shift, all right? Focus on what you want to do with communication, with your own personal brand, because the 3rd house deals with branding and marketing. But when we look at it with something like Saturn in Aries, we're looking at our own personal brand. We're saying, okay, how committed and how confident am I to becoming the person I want to be? What are my limits and can I push past them? Because that 3rd house is very fast, it's very speedy. So we're not taking a glacial stance here. We're moving full forward here. I'm quite excited for you, Aquarius. I don't think it's bad energy at all. I think it's quite, I've been saying it's an aggressive new start, but the aggression is not something that's like nasty. It's like just I don't want to be held back anymore. I don't want to do that, So I think for you, it's going to be, it's quite a passionate week. If you are a Pisces and you're quite a main character this week, so February the 16th, Mercury in Pisces in your 1st house is trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 5th house. There's a few things to note here, which is that we know that Mercury in Pisces is debilitated, but we're also in the pre-shadow period for the retrograde in Pisces that begins on the 25th. So just be mindful that your communication, it's not bad, and it's not that you can't communicate, it's just that it could be a little bit janky. So if you are going to say something of importance or you're going to sort of broach a topic that's a bit dicey, just be mindful of the consequences with it. And generally on this day, this aspect is very optimistic, especially for going on a date, or for planning something really fun, like going to like a comedy gig or a concert or a festival, doing something really fun. February the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius in your 12th house. So this is taking place at 28 degrees, which is quite deceptive energy. And the 12th house is hidden. The new moon is when there's very little light in the sky. Therefore, there's a lot of detective energy or some secrets that might come to light that you weren't expecting, or extra layers of manipulation, especially because of all this Pisces energy with Mercury, Venus, and then the next day there'll be the sun. So all of that is quite delusional, which is basically a susceptibility to not seeing things in front of you, like the red flags. So I think there could be some secrets that come to light, or you're trying to figure things out. It doesn't necessarily have to be external. It can be also related to you. Like, am I trying to figure something out about myself? Because the 12th house deals with meditation and mental health. And because Aquarius is trying to innovate, is trying to change the status quo, it's really like, boom, I've got to change things, right? The eclipse energy is quite volatile. So it's not a time to do something tangible, but you can make some decisions in your mind about how you want to change things up. Say mentally, I can't do this anymore, I have to end this connection, or I don't necessarily think that this is right for me, so I'm going to innovate and change it up, and I'm going to use the manifestation energy that Pisces is bringing right now to help me here. So I think that's actually quite nice, because Venus in Pisces is also going to be trining Jupiter in Cancer during this time. So you do have some nice energy with romance there, for example. February 18th, the sun enters Pisces. So this is really wonderful. It's very imaginative and empathetic. It's a really good time for us to envision sort of a more harmonious world for ourselves, and really good for art, photography, and writing as well. February the 20th, Saturn in Aries in the second house is conjunct Neptune in Aries in the second house. And this is taking place at 0 degrees, which is super rare. We haven't had this like since BC ages. So this is putting all of our dreams into reality. However, as I've mentioned, Saturn in Aries in the second house wants to constrict or add boundaries to money and luxury. So this is the time to manifest increased income, because even though Saturn is in Aries, it's conjunct Neptune, which is adding some manifestation energy. So there are some bridges to be made here when it comes to finances and what you want and what you value. I personally think you're really encouraged to see the boundaries of how you make money and the limits, but also say, sky is the limit, okay? If this person's got this, I know I can have it. And again, I've been saying to everybody that this is a new era and a new start, but I see no reason why you can't manifest, because that Neptune energy is actually adding a bit of delusion, but it's also adding motivation and activity as well. Also, Pisces, I just want to mention that Saturn is now in Aries. So Saturn is not in Pisces. So even if you're watching as a Pisces sun or rising or whatnot, and you don't have Saturn in Pisces, it will still be lighter for you. And some people have gotten confused by this, because they're like, well, how is it going to affect if I didn't have Saturn in Pisces? Well, let's say we've got this. We've got this board here. Can you imagine that you've got, say, Saturn here, right? And this is the transit. If you have something natally like the sun here, what do you think that's going to do if it's making a conjunction when it reaches the degree point? It's going to affect you, right? So it's still going to feel a little bit lighter for you. Again, we do have the pre-shadow period for the Mercury retrograde, so everything is not perfect, but that is going to help a lot, and it's going to make you feel a lot better, especially now that Neptune's out of Pisces too. So you might start to feel a little bit lighter. That was the weekly horoscope for the 16th to the 22nd. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't be afraid of anything happening like the eclipse or what's going on with this Saturn conjunction with Neptune. Oh my God, crazy, right? It's definitely going to be a week that changes the whole year, in my opinion, trajectory-wise. And I'm not saying that as a, oh yeah, this is definitely, like, it's definitely going to change things. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you for the next weekly horoscope.